Kak no Jutsu!
We're gonna have to do that every time, won't we?
I'm gonna have to do that every time. I'm gonna enjoy it every time, too.
For Christ's sake.
I will win.
Well, speak up. It's your show.
That's true. It is my show. I mean, yeah, it's my show. Oh, mine. Pleased with myself I am. Anyways, welcome back to another T.H.E no Jutsu, where I and whoever I want, in this case Knick Knack was the only available option.
Win by default.
Yeah, discuss things. Contradictory things, same things, just things in anime.
And sometimes just discuss.
Today's topic is like binging versus weekly. It's not necessarily a debate because neither of us is,
It's not like last time where we clearly had our preferences.
Yeah, but watching shows weekly versus binging.
And by binging, we don't even just mean like that watch like 20 episodes of Game of Thrones in one day. We mean like day-to-day watching an episode even is still binging.
Yeah, just consuming them at a faster pace than they came out.
Yeah.
In general.
And that's kind of the distinction, I think, is the week-to-week, some shows are designed for that release schedule.
But I think that's also not to be discounted that there are two different types of binging.
Yes.
And one is kind of where you watch it every day, and one is where, you watch 200 episodes in a week.
I do think that the watch one episode a day thing, generally, if you can watch 200 episodes in a week, you can watch one a day and get largely the same experience.
Yeah.
I think there are preferences as to how fast you want to go through, but it's still the same sort of, you're still doing the same exact thing in terms of getting through, and you still have that same empty feeling if you hit a wall where things haven't come out yet.
It's a little bit more intense, though, to binge. For example, if you're, it's a Saturday and you start at 8 a.m. and you don't end until midnight, that's a much different feeling than just watching the same show every day. I mean...
but for purpose of this discussion, I think we're not necessarily distincting the type of anime you'd watch between the two. So I think they're largely the same as to what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. So, when we talked last time, we talked about size mattering, right? And I think one of those things that gets a lot of binging, right, is really large animes.
I don't know. The really short stuff I tend to see get binged a lot too. Not necessarily every short show, but a lot of these shorter shows, you tend to watch some people will watch them all in a day because they're really small, self-contained stories. You start the story and you finish the story. Whereas a longer show, a lot of the times the way they got that long was that week-to-week schedule. Your Pokemons, your One Pieces.
But the majority of people, I'm going to put this out, the majority of people have not been watching One Piece since it started.
No.
The majority of people have not watched One Piece for 20 years, and I think the common modus operandi for anyone getting into anime, right, when faced with a show longer than 40 episodes, is to do an extreme form of binging to get at least a little bit caught up or a little bit into it so you can say, oh yeah, I watched Naruto,
I also still think the shows, when the shows are that long, they tend to not be as designed for that, though. I don't know how One Piece is going to come up. I definitely know if, Naruto, if I had watched that week to week, there probably would have been a lot more of a suspense feeling. Whereas day to day, it tended to be a lot more I don't know. This is getting resolved now. Whereas it seems like if a show ends and its tension is at a point where it wants you to sit thinking about what they could possibly do.
Yeah.
That's a little bit different than a show that just continues the story through.
That's true. But at the same time, I also think that there's a lot, binging is favored by some people. Some people prefer to binge. It's an easier way to consume anime that are already finished or to get caught up. Good Lord, if you tried, the thing is, I'm sure Naruto is it's much better if you watched an episode a week.
Yes, but you're never catching up.
Yeah, and I never watched an episode a week, for example. When I started watching Naruto, I would get home from school and just turn the episodes on and watch till bedtime and then rinse and repeat the next day. So, I was binging them and then all day on the weekends. And I did the same thing for One Piece. And to me, it was not adverse. I didn't find them to be unenjoyable because I was binging.
I think if I had to pick an example from Naruto specifically, spoiler alert, I guess, for a very early episode.
Yeah.
That part where it's like they're in the fight scene. I don't remember his name. The guy with the Sharingan. Like actively,
Kakashi.
like it makes it look like he wins the fight. You go to the next episode, and the fight continues from there.
Yeah.
So it's like it's very clearly not designed so that you're watching it from the beginning to end of that fight. It's designed so that that's a self-contained episode for the week. Now, I don't think Naruto's as big as something like a Pokemon or a Prince of Tennis, where very clearly that's a much more of a you are watching this episode a week to get your fix.
Yeah, I think Pokemon and Detective Conan are made, and Digimon.
And I'd put Prince of Tennis in there
and Yu-Gi-Oh.
And Yu-Gi-Oh. A lot of
I don't put Prince of Tennis in there, but only because you've only seen the first. How many have you watched? 15?
15. Yeah.
You've only seen the first 15, and granted, the first 15 are pretty week to week, but that starts to become not as much of a thing pretty soon. Like it gets to a little bit more of a. It's not quite so.
I mean, possibly we'll get there when we get there. But as far as what we saw now, I can tell you right now that the show was in no way designed. Nor are you getting any.
Well, no show is designed to be watched all at once. None.
I don't know. If you look at something like, and this isn't anime anymore, like a Game of Thrones is very much so designed to make you want to move on to that next episode immediately. It's not necessarily designed to keep you in
but it's also,
but
and I think part of that is because there's already like a massively popular book series out, A, and B, I think the other thing with that is Game of Thrones. So there's a distinction between like American TV, because in American TV there's a lot of that kind of like, you want to move on to the next episode, but you have to wait a week.
Well, I think I don't want to get too off on
nobody binges, like, for example, Criminal Minds, except for those weirdos like me.
Except for weirdos like you.
Criminal Minds is not a binge show necessarily. It is week to week.
What I'm thinking here is like, because American TV, you do get a lot of like the binge, like a lot of this like binge culture is born from sort of a cliffhanger culture from like, and I don't want to go too off on this tangent, but from Lost. Mm-hmm. If you've ever heard of that show.
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
Basically ends with a cliffhanger. And it's not meant to make you immediately watch the next episode. It's meant to make so that you're wondering what's going to happen, so that when you tune in the next week, you're still tuning. To convince you to tune in.
As opposed to like SpongeBob, which is
SpongeBob's definitely it's definitely not meant. SpongeBob's in another category altogether. I would say where it's like you're not meant to watch this in order. You're meant to turn on the TV, see it's on, have nothing better to watch, and just watch it and turn your brain off.
Because there isn't a. Okay, apparently there is a SpongeBob canon and storyline, but I am not one of those people. I've heard of it.
Do not believe you. I'm sorry, I cannot believe you there.
Heard of it, but I don't subscribe to it. But SpongeBob is not. So I don't know. To me, SpongeBob feels like a show that you'd want like to just keep watching, not weekly. So to me, something like having it be weekly. Like I wanted.
SpongeBob wasn't designed for weekly. It was designed for like heck. I'd even say SpongeBob was designed for you were supposed to watch this episode and just like it's not meant for any consistent order, not weekly, not daily, not all at once. It's designed so that you can watch in literally any order and you'll get the same enjoyment out of it.
But at the same
time, you can put it down and not lose anything.
Well, at the same time, for example, like Dragon Ball, I don't think you lose any of the suspense. For example, if you watched the Cell games episode by episode versus all at one time, I don't necessarily think you lose any suspense because there's nothing that you're really. And to put this in the nicest possible way, Dragon Ball is not intelligent enough for there to be anything you're thinking about that could be developing.
Okay, Dragon Ball. The reason why I say it's definitely designed for week to week. That classic shonen problem of Goku's charging up a fight in one episode and 20 episodes later he's still finishing that. That's not because it's meant to be like this ongoing plot arc. It's meant to be so that you what's this awesome thing Goku's doing? Tune in next time. Come back next week. It's the suspense thing.
True, but we
lose that a lot in Western culture because a lot of these anime that really gain big binge, like Naruto, One Piece, Dragon Ball, we got a lot of these a lot later than the Japanese audiences.
Yeah.
If we weren't watching these week to week to begin with, unlike even some of the Japanese audiences, we got these so much later that most people had all these episodes to just keep watching.
See,
So that's why you don't hear about like the week to week as often as much as you hear the
I
seasonal
don't
Binge.
necessarily know, because Dragon Ball Z was played on... Dragon Ball Z played week to week releases on Nicktoons when I was in elementary school. Dragon Ball Z, which wasn't too long after it was coming out in Japan. So, I mean, I did experience the week to week in Dragon Ball Z, and it was infernal, infuriating, and terrible. I hated it.
I think you're underestimating how long it had been out in elementary school, because Dragon Ball is a show from the like.
Well,
it was
Dragon
a show
Ball.
late 90s.
I said Dragon Ball Z.
Even Z was late
the
90s,
sequel.
early 2000s.
I feel like it's early 2000s. I could be wrong. I'll check, because I don't want to be wrong, obviously.
And if
But
elementary school would have been around mid 2000s for us.
Yeah, it should have been.
So it had been around for a fair. Like, you look at the aspect quality on the old Dragon Ball.
Oh, that you are very correct, and I am very wrong.
Yeah, a lot of people, like, even if you weren't, like, a lot of people who got real invested. I mean, really invested, who actually, like, the super fans of Dragon Ball. A lot of them, the way they consumed it was they saw an episode, thought it was cool, and they either waited the next week and kept watching, which would have been more similar to the Japanese experience, or they had
So I have an addendum, right? So I have watched all of Dragon Ball Z, right? But the show I was talking about, I made a mistake. I meant Dragon Ball Z Kai, which came out from 2009 to 2011, week to week on Nicktoons.
Yes.
Dragon Ball Z Kai. It was a regurgitation of Dragon Ball Z in shorter form.
Dragon Ball Z Kai was also more of was a trimmed down version.
That's what I mean. So Dragon Ball Z was 300 episodes and ran from 1989 to 1996, and Z Kai ran in the late 2000s and then continued in 2014 for a year, and it was only 159.
It's for certain a much shorter, much more streamlined series meant for a much quicker consumption time.
I mean, I'm not saying that it didn't still have like 6 episode fight scenes.
No, but
so Dragon Ball is the worst for that, by the way. My general rule of thumb is that, like, Goku's gonna win the fight, just periods. Spoilers, I guess, but Goku's gonna win. So when he starts yelling at the beginning of a fight, skip 10 episodes, see if he's done, and then skip by 2s until he is, because honestly half of it is just him going ah for 20 minutes at a time. There's not a whole lot of like witty banter or actual plot in the fights. It's just Goku wins or he doesn't, and you'll know at the end.
I'm not arguing here that none of these shows can't be like properly experienced week to week, or that there's anything lost day to day or binging altogether. I'm not saying that, but it's very clear that the show was designed for that week to week style, and that's the way that it was specifically meant to drag people in, was the week to week style, as opposed to something like then there are shows that are like completely like, this is not meant to be binged, like Pokemon.
Yeah, but then there are what show is made to be binged in that vein, because no show is released all at once. Like pretty much all shows are released week to week, and they have to be interesting enough to keep people's attention from week to week, even like modern ones.
The modern shows are released week to week for social media reasons. That's a little bit different than when they were released week to week before.
But at the same time, it's still week to week, regardless of the reasoning for it. And you do have to keep your audience. Like, let's put it, if Ascendance of a Bookworm had gotten really boring during episode 2, I probably wouldn't have lasted through it.
No.
Like, I cannot tolerate watching week to week if there's not something exciting happening every week. And that's a downfall of shows like Naruto and Dragon Ball, is you can have fight scenes that go on for like 8 episodes, and a lot of that generally tends to be pretty boring.
Yeah.
You know?
But you're supposed to forget that you're bored when you go from one week to the next. Like, you go from one week, you watch the full episode, you go to the next week, you're not just getting off. Like, you go 3 weeks from now, you didn't just sit through that fight scene. You don't you split it up, so you don't realize you sat through about an hour's worth of that fight scene.
But then you're sitting there for like 3 weeks and nothing has happened in your show of import other than more yelling, and that's almost annoying in its own way. Like, I can't stand when shows go week to week but don't accomplish anything in the episode that's showing. Like, I need something to happen that isn't just...
I think that for me, at least personally, I don't want to dip too far back into our short versus long series.
Yeah.
That's why I kind of stay away from the longer series, because the longer series tend to risk that more.
Yeah.
Where nothing will happen over long stretches of episodes.
I guess the other thing is I think the thing with weekly is weekly can be a little bit of a touchy thing if you're not absolutely dedicated to keeping up with a show. It's very easy to just not have time that week, or not remember, or not catch it on TV in time. And there's also, I feel personally like it's a lot easier to fall off of a show watching week to week as to binging.
That's the difference here, is shows specifically designed for week to week as opposed to binging. The way they're set up is they're either set up so that they don't care if you fall off the show and come back to it later another week, or they're meant specifically to grip you week to week, not to keep you going episode to episode. It comes with its own flaws. Like if you don't care if people fall off for a week, that's when you get like a Pokemon, where it's kind of hard to sit through like 50 episodes at once.
Then you come to like, what if you're watching a show, right? And it's okay, right? And if there were like 6 episodes playing in one day on TV, right? Let's say it just happens to be playing all in a row on TV. And you're like, okay, I'll sit down and watch this. But it's not good enough for you to want to like reserve the time every week or ever come back to it. I know, but
even if they're intending to, that doesn't mean they succeed in it. Like, look at anime seasonal culture. Most shows are dropped by most fans. It's very rare you have like a ReZero or I think Hame Furo is really big, or it's very rare you get those. Like, look at Tower of God from this last season. I know you don't watch seasonal very much.
No.
But Tower of God, like, people were really interested to begin with, but then it just did a terrible job maintaining its pace early on, and it lost so many people early on. And that's just the failure of the anime, I think.
Speaking of Tower of God, the other thing is Tower of God is, and I say this in a nice way, a little tangential. Tower of God is, in a way, was setting a precedent. It's one of the first webtoons to ever be made into an anime. And I think a lot of fans of the webtoons decided to watch the show, and the show was either disappointing or not paced correctly, or it was just a little off from which I have not read the webtoon, but I haven't heard great reviews from people who have. And the thing about webtoons as well is I have this issue with webtoons, is webtoons come out weekly. And I often, like, I catch up on, like, The Gamer, for example, right? And then I can go 6 months without remembering to read another chapter or just ignoring it. And then I'll, have like 70 chapters to read that I read all at once in like 2 days,
Yeah, but I mean, that gets to, you're not going to get like everything at once. That's just not how it works. That requires too much budget. If you get everything at once, typically it's either really bad or it's not finished.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just a matter of like my own temperament and watching. I really like to watch from beginning to end, kind of as fast as possible.
But look at something like, we just watched Bookworm seasons 1, and we had to hold off on watching for like multiple seasons, and we came back to it.
Yeah. But let's put it this way. If that had been, for example, if that had been Noragami, right? That we'd watched like 12 episodes of and then didn't get to watch the other 12. Noragami is a show I would never remember to go back to, ever.
Oh, and here's the thing. A show can fail at being a good week-to-week show, yet still have a popularity because it gets good. That doesn't necessarily mean that it wasn't designed week-to-week. It just means that it wasn't good at keeping people week-to-week.
Yeah.
Most shows, like a lot of shows, get popular in post. Like Demon Slayer, like didn't have, like, it had people week-to-week. It obviously had its dedicated fan base. Yeah. But then like a very specific episode late in the series really brought people back, and they caught up to it. And now people are like, I'm paying attention to this. But shows sometimes lose people for long stretches of time before they get people back. And that's just how, it's just because you can't watch every anime. That's not, even most seasonal people pick like at max 3 or 4 shows. And even then, I'd say the average person probably caps out at 1 show a season.
I mean, that's fair. I don't know. My other thing is I'm also not very good at splitting my attention between a lot of different shows. I do just tend to, I really like to finish a show, you know? Because also, just, distractions. So for me, I mean, binging is a good way to avoid distractions as much as possible. Because I've set aside the time to binge. Like I know I have free time for the next like 5 hours or something. And I mean, why wouldn't I binge if I have the free time?
I mean, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
For 99% of shows, like they have to be in the category of like a Pokemon or even an Ishizoku reviewers. Those shows are specifically meant for you to not consume it all at once. It has to be one of those where I say you're actively losing a lot by watching it day to day or week to week.
Yeah, Ishizoku was pretty hard to watch all in a row.
Yeah, like I love the show. You don't watch it all at once.
No.
Like, give yourself gaps or watch it as you feel like watching it.
Yeah, because I watched the first 2 episodes and then I watched the next two, and then a while went by and I watched another, and then a couple days and I watched another. I don't think I ever managed to make it through more than 2 episodes in a day, though, and never on back-to-back days.
Yeah, there are some shows that are just downright not meant to be binged even at the lightest amount, like the day-to-day.
Yeah.
Whereas there are other shows that are like, if a show is in any kind of a middle ground, I don't think you're really missing anything by doing one or the other at your leisure.
But then, in a very specific and probably very rare case, right? Fruits Basket had a remake. And I watched the original Fruits Basket. It was already out. I definitely did not watch it week to week. It was old when I watched it. And it's not complete, but and the thing is, I started watching the new one, and I kind of was watching it like not all that frequently. I was watching it here and there, but the problem, especially with a remake, and some shows get remakes that are almost identical, and some get slight changes, but it became almost unbearable to watch at a slower pace because I already knew what was going to happen.
See, I don't know Fruits Basket at all, so I have no real way of discussing the merits of that show specifically on week to week. And let me put it this way. I never purposely go out of my way to watch a show week to week.
Yeah.
There are just some shows, like, when you say a show is designed for week to week, it either means the show should absolutely not be in any way watched day to day or episode to episode on, like, or hour to hour. But I'm losing my train of thought here. Just because a show is designed for week to week, and 99% of shows are.
Yeah.
Generally, that just means that it's being designed to be able to carry your attention from week to week. And different shows vary at their ability to do that. But most shows are designed that way.
Yeah, I mean...
And I'm no stranger to liking a show and just keep going because it's there.
Yeah, and I mean, even in the U.S., you look at U.S. TV, a lot of stuff is, meant to be watched once a week because they want you to keep watching over a longer period of time. And I get that. I watched all those crime shows that were on TV week to week.
And I'd even argue that that's the case in Japan as well. Like, there's these shows, especially in the modern anime culture, really do go episode to episode.
It's weird because so there's this thing in Japanese and Chinese TV, right? Not anime, but TV, where they'll film like a 60 episode show, right? But instead of releasing week to week, they'll release 5 episodes a week, one every night in the same time slot. And that's so weird. I love it, but it's so weird to me.
That's what Pokemon did back in the day. They released a new episode every day. That's why when you listen to the Pokemon, they have dubbed. There's always that Poke rap where they reference, "Come back tomorrow, come back tomorrow, come back tomorrow, come back next week, and we'll do this all over again." Sorry,
the only Pokemon song I know is the one where the dude's forced to sing all 718 Pokemon.
Well, that's the parody Poke rap of all of them. Still great.
Amazing.
But the original rap did at the end of every single section have, "Come back next week and we'll rap some more." Or not next week, "Come back tomorrow, we'll rap some more." They specifically made a point that these are in sets of 5.
It's such an odd thing though, because so many shows don't release day to day. And then when a show releases day to day, that's
it's
impressive.
Pokemon, it was just because the dub was quicker to do than to fully animate everything, so they just released the dub day to day.
Yeah.
Whereas in Japan, and they shifted over this when they caught up, they go week to week now.
Yeah. And I don't know, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen an anime come out day to day.
No. Well, yeah, no, I don't think generally they don't.
Yeah, that doesn't happen.
That doesn't
and I get why, because you'd have to build up a massive backlog, because there's no way you could animate that day to day. You'd have to be working on it like years in advance.
Yeah,
and that's a lot of money for something that may not do well, etc., etc. So, I mean, I get it.
Yeah, and it's not like TV where everything was acted out, and it all kind of had to be done at around the same time. The anime, they're often making these episodes for longer stretches of time for less payoff.
Yeah.
Because it takes longer to animate than I think it does to fully record, unless you're like doing real high budget stuff.
It's odd because sometimes some webtoons come out like 3 days a week, some come out twice a week, some come out once a week, and some come out every 2 weeks or just sporadically whenever the author has time. And I've had to get used to it from webtoons, which is a lot of the reason why I tend to like. I open the Webtoons app like once every 3 months or so and catch up on everything I want to catch up on, and then close it again and don't open it for a while. And I gotta admit, I kind of watch anime like that too. I open up Verve or whatever I'm watching anime on, and I kind of binge it for a little while, go through a couple different shows, and then I'm generally done with anime for another month or two. I switch over to regular shows.
Discounting what we do with this fucking podcast.
Yeah, discounting the podcast episodes. And you hear it in the podcast all the time. I binge almost exclusively. I really don't like watching, like, if I have the time to watch more than one episode, I don't like watching only one or two.
By the way, me advocating for the week to week here is not because I'm saying you need to watch week to week. I fully understand people who don't want to watch episodes. In fact, most series I watch outside of like the ones I've really got my eye on, I watch. Like, I didn't watch Demon Slayer till the series was basically over.
Mm-hmm.
But like,
I hate, like, oh God, what's the word? What's the fucking word? I don't like the build-up. God, the waiting, the anticipation. I don't like when like something ends on a cliffhanger and you're like sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting.
That's how they get you, though.
See, but for me, it does the opposite. So for a lot of people, the anticipation will like keep them waiting for the next episode. For me, I get a couple days of being like pissed off that I don't know what happens next, and then I just stop watching. It happens with I used to read like a lot of fan fiction that was not completed, and I could not stand waiting. I would just become disinterested by the time that the new chapter had come out. I couldn't wait that long. And I mean, that is a fixture of my own attention span. Like, I have massive problems.
This way, though, fan fiction, and we really should get back to anime here. Well, but like fan fiction, often the amount of time, like, you don't know when a fan fiction's getting its new chapter because these are not people being kept up on deadlines.
Yeah.
Most of the time, these people, like, they'll update once every few months sometimes, or even then, you don't know how long this fan fiction is going to be. This could be like hundreds of chapters of waiting like 3 weeks between chapters just to end on cliffhangers.
But in terms of my circumstances especially, I don't actually look at how many episodes something has before I start watching.
No.
Like, I'm currently watching Beelzebub. No clue how many episodes Beelzebub has. I'm on episode 13.
But like most modern shows, this is happened. Unless outside of the Black Plague breaking out, shows are going to come out. It's coming out within the next week to this time. That there's only going to be at most 12 to 24 episodes of this. That you're on a schedule here, and it might still bug you, but you're not as likely to be like, oh, that exists.
I know, but even on a schedule, knowing that something's going to come out the next week, that's how Mom and I stopped watching Mentalist.
But the problem with that...
But there just comes a point, like, especially with my attention span, where I just don't want to wait 7 days. That's that. I have 3 days and I'm done.
Attitude towards shows, though, is... Yeah. Unless you're watching a completed show, which is very rare in anime. So, like, a little bit too rare, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Unless you're watching completed shows that were done right, you're either going to get completed shows that were rushed to an ending, or the show's you're going to eventually hit a wall where you're waiting. Because you never, unless the show's absolutely over, you're always going to have to wait when you catch up, no matter how many episodes have been released.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, but I tend to catch up and then wait for another backlog to form and then catch up again. I tend to watch in bursts. I binge burst. Just like short bursts of binging to get like fulfillment and then back.
And believe me, I do understand that. And again, we're going back to that short versus long, but that's a kind of why I prefer short series, because because you can watch, get that burst done, and congratulations, you're done. You don't have to wonder if they're like when your next burst is, or have to like remember anything about that series next time you watch a burst of shows.
I mean, I suppose, but I just don't. I don't know. I mean, I don't have an issue with.
You don't have an issue with bursting, and you don't have an issue with longer shows. But what
Yeah.
happens when you're trying to find something new? That's really hard.
Yeah, I do tend to
And we
have
do
trouble.
notice, and trust me, we notice, and we mumble about it before this podcast happened. You don't tend to watch a lot of newer stuff because of that, and it tends to be, you tend to be really far behind on things.
Even now, I don't watch a lot of new stuff, even with the podcast. Like right now, I'm watching Beelzebub.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I did actually this week. I did a bunch of binging over the last 2 weeks, and I watched half of Isekai Restaurant and half of I Can't Understand My Husband, He's an Otaku, and I watched all of Isekai Izakaya, and I'm partway through Beelzebub right now, as well as finishing our show for the first show for season 2, which y'all aren't going to see for like 4 months, but hint it's
sexy.
Yeah, and it's a good show to review.
Yes.
But I don't know. I mean, so I had a burst this week where I was kind of like really into like watching anime, and so but I also have other things going on.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, for me, I do just tend to like burst in and out of like chunks of time where I can do one thing or the other. I do the same thing with the fan fiction archives. I can spend like 2 weeks in an archive, and then I need to be done with it for the next month. So I have to rotate the fan fiction archives I'm reading from, because you just get exhaustion after a certain point of saturation. And I think that's my problem with watching a show on a slower basis is A, I don't really like the anticipation, and B, it drags it out for so long when you could just be one and done with a done show or something like that, and you get it and you watch it, but you don't need to dwell on it for like 12
why
weeks.
I prefer shorter series.
Yeah.
But then that's the thing is, the way you like to watch shows, it locks you into, and this is basically a part 2 to long versus short at this point.
Yeah.
It's
okay.
It locks you into long shows that are completed. There are maybe 3 of those in the modern anime conversation.
Yeah.
And maybe 1 or 2 of them that are actually good.
Yeah, and I mean, I get that, but I think I personally, right, have always consumed media of all sorts very quickly. Like I books, shows, games, I tend to really like to just burst through, like power through it almost. Like I start a book, finish that book within an hour if possible. Even really long books, I can read really fast and I will not wait. Like I have lost interest in series waiting for a new book to come out. Like that's a thing that I do. And I have the same thing with like, I can't, so I play computer games, right? But like specifically like Hidden Object, right? Like very basic stuff, but they have a storyline. And you know, they're divided into chapters, but I can't play chapter by chapter. I need to finish the entire story. I need to finish the entire, like when I'm playing a Trade Winds trading game with like a storyline, I need to finish the storyline before I log off. Like I need that completion.
And trust me, I do 100% get that. I don't. I'm not saying I'm not coming from a position of when I watch a series, if I actually like it, I'll binge it.
Mm-hmm.
I fucking watched the entirety of Code Geass in 2 weeks.
I mean,
but
that's not that fast.
look, we're not watching 400 episode anime series in 2 weeks and carrying a job and having work. All things considered, I think I was pretty fast in comparison to college working, as opposed to you watching through One Piece in
Okay, that
your
took
high
me an
school
entire
summer.
summer.
Yes, while you're in high school and wasn't holding down a job. You know, all things considered, I think that's pretty damn quick for my current pace, don't you? Becky?
I sense that if I object, I may not be alive for the next episode, so I will abstain from commentary.
And look, you're not the worst offender I've ever seen of, like, I need to finish this soon and now. There are people who legitimately watch anime at 1.5 speed just to get that 0.5 extra, like, I hate to say it.
Those people are heathens. They don't believe in a god, and they deserve to be... I can't say that on camera, so I'm just going to leave it there. Those people are not good people. Those are not people you should associate with. Those are the kind of people that you stop talking to. Like, how dare you?
No, I've never been able to do that.
I did not know that was a thing, and I am deeply insulted by that idea. Like, deeply insulted.
And quite honestly, well, I'm not going to name him here, but one of my favorite YouTube creators for anime has that exact same, like, yeah, I just can't watch shows week to week unless they're absolute trash, and I know I'm just watching it to kill time and to laugh at it.
Jesus.
But I do realize, like, I'm not arguing from a position of binging is bad. Okay, not unless you're binging a day before we're supposed to record the entire series. That's a little bit different. That's less me getting mad because I think...
PSA to Realm and Vorn.
Yes. Don't watch the entire series a day before, because if you need a break from that series, you're not able to give yourself that break.
Yeah, or...
And suddenly you're pissed off at the series.
Yeah, or if you just can't handle a series, don't binge it. That makes it so much worse because you're just getting something you hate shoved down your goddamn throat. I guarantee you Vorn binged our first review series
of season 2.
I guarantee you he binged it.
Yeah. If you don't, and that's very exclusively a problem for us, because if we don't like a show, we are pressured to
finish to 12 episodes, or at least get to 7, I think we have for our cutoff. And if we only get to 7, we can't participate in discussion.
Yeah. So
I get it, but you know.
That's specifically where I object to binging. Otherwise, I am perfectly like, yeah, you want to binge, you want to binge. It's like where I'm arguing with you, you know, is specifically the combination of I need to binge, I need the series to be done, I need it to be long. Because there are so few series like that, you've basically screwed yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it got to a point where it was like I had the option of Dragon Ball, Fairy Tail, Bleach, Naruto, and One Piece. And then sometimes I would watch Toriko or Hunter x Hunter or FMA because they were shorter. You know? I think that's the point where we actually started the podcast, was because I was like, you're watching literally none of the new stuff. Yeah, because I don't monitor lists of upcoming anime. I don't check. And I am not subscribed to any place that announces. Like, I don't know when things get shows. One of my favorite mangas ever is about the Ottoman Empire. And apparently it got an anime on Amazon Prime like 4 years ago that I had no clue existed. And Nick Nack made a comment about, like, I made a comment about, like, an Ottoman Empire or something. He's like, I'd watch an anime on that. I was like, I have a manga for you. And I looked it up and there was a fucking anime that I didn't know existed. See, I don't look for what's getting adaptations, but if I know there's a series of something and I really love that series, you bet your ass I'm checking every time, like, there's a wave of new anime being announced if that got a series. Yeah, see, and I think the last time I checked on a seasonal anime announcement was back in sophomore year chemistry class with Vorn, because we used to go over them together at lunch when they were announced and mark down what we'd like to watch, but I never actually watched anything because I couldn't stand the waiting. See, most of where I get my seasonal anime selection from is 2 places. Either A, YouTube recommends me a random anime trailer and I check to see if it was released in the last couple of weeks,
Because if it was released months ago, then God, no, that's an anime that's already out. That's something new. Or alternatively, I watch like a few of the YouTubers, and I'm not going to name them, but a lot of YouTubers like to do this preseason thing where like a few episodes into a season, they'll go over the new anime for that season. I like to watch those just kind of to hear, because some of them are funny. But generally, like, I don't think I've ever started. It's very rare that I start a season at episode 1.
But at the same time, I could also like, I could call out Vorn, right? Like Vorn and Realm specifically, because Vorn and Realm do not watch anything that's not premiering this season. They will not go back in time unless it's something exceptional, you know?
I think Realm has gone back in time before.
A few times, but he doesn't do it very often, and he does it for special exceptions.
Realm
like
hasn't actually
FMA
been watching a lot of new series in general, though.
Well, Realm hasn't been watching a lot in general.
I think his anime intake has largely been taken over by the podcast.
Yeah.
And before it was very much so, does this look interesting?
But Vorn especially, he likes to like make a list each season, right? And he gets to some of the anime on his list, but if he doesn't get to them, he just never watches them. And he does not look at anything older than the current season.
But being fair to Realm, I've actually gotten, like, Realm actually usually gets his shows from recommendations from other weeb friends.
Yeah, which is fair. I mean, I get it. But at the same time, you know, his proclivity for making a list, right, of shows that sound interesting each season and then not necessarily watching them is what got us Amagami SS.
Well, that was Vorn. That was...
But Vorn is also very resistant to older shows in general. Like, he's not a fan of older shows. He's not a fan of anything that's long either. He prefers short things that are done quickly.
I mean, I prefer short things that are done quickly, but...
Yeah, but you're willing to attempt.
Well, that's the point of the 12 episodes thing, is because we basically turned the 3-episode rule into the 12-episode rule. That's another talk no jutsu for another time, I think.
12 episodes isn't even enough to count as 3 for One Piece.
Look, we aren't doing an entire arc. 3-episode rule is designed all together. Like, I think at the end of 12 episodes, you should know whether or not you like the tone and the world of the series, whether or not you like the storyline. The storyline can stretch out as long. That's getting into that's another discussion. Is how many episodes do you have to watch?
Yeah, One Piece is an outlier. I will admit that. One Piece is entirely its own outlier in all of these categories because it starts so goddamn abominably, terribly slow and like uninteresting, and then all of a sudden it gets amazing. But it's not till like a significant chunk of episodes in.
You know what's interesting? And gosh, I know we're really getting onto tangents here. We should probably be wrapping this up soon.
Yeah.
But
your tangent is the last one, then we'll wrap up.
There's a lot more shows coming out that were designed with that same from the same shonen or the same long form traditions, but because of the current culture of anime being released seasonably, you're getting Hero Aka releases 24 or 25 episodes at a time, whereas the manga gets really damn far ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Or something like Tower of God, where you're getting 12 episodes, and that's barely scratching the surface of the series, so you're not really getting into the story at all. But it's not that constant week release, so watching only that season, you would probably fall off the series because it wasn't designed that way from manga. I think that's another difference, is certain manga were designed for that kind of long form intake, I think.
Yeah. Okay, one more short tangent before we wrap up. The other thing is a lot of newer anime, right? Like Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer is just in the least rude way possible. This is not meant to bat at Demon Slayer, right? Demon Slayer is every 2000 shonen that got an upgrade in terms of length. They were just so all this stuff that it took you 200 episodes to do, we're going to do it in 12.
Streamlining a lot of the bullshit.
Yeah.
Trimming the fat.
Yeah. I mean, that's essentially what a lot of new anime coming out are doing. They're doing the exact same things that were done in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, but they're shaping it to be so much more concise.
Yeah, and I think... And again, this goes to I think this has allowed more anime to be made.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least more
manga get chances to be made into anime. Now, whether they succeed after the first 12 episodes is another thing altogether.
I do think, though, it creates an even easier chance for a manga to fall off and get ended early.
Yeah.
Like, we hear about it all the time, anime series that should have gone on longer, only getting one season because it just wasn't worth it to bring it back for another one.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I mean, with that being said, this really has been our talk on. We have gone far too tangential at the end. Because
do you want to try deciding on another episode right now before we end? See if we can give a little hint. Just quick, fling something out there. It's your show, so you can fling out what the next topic will be.
Ninjas are better.
Oh, fuck you! It's samurai
Ninjas are better. No jutsu.
Yeah, try harder, everyone.